This podcast is sponsored by Relevant. It's a new iOS app to consolidate the media you want to see in a place you control. With Relevant, you stay up to date with things you're actually interested in. You tell Relevant what's relevant to you, and you'll be given all the content you love from all across the internet, all in one place. It's available on iOS devices and coming soon to Android. Be the first to know with Relevant.
What's up, everybody? It's the Poorly Edited Podcast coming at you live from the WXLV radio station, The X. I'm Chandler Davis, your host. I'm here with the other hosts, the usuals.
My name is Coffee Guy.
My name's Patrick Lilly.
We got Amres Farrow on the social media, streaming it on Instagram or something. I don't know what she's doing. We got Lizzie Cates behind me. She's just hanging out. It's Reggie, Lab 212 Instagram. And we got our special guest.
My name's Chad.
Chad who?
Chad Brown.
And who are you?
Your social, please.
My social. My social is.
No.
Oh, I thought you had my social security number. I was about to.
What's your Nintendo friend code?
Yeah.
Nintendo.
What
I don't play Nintendo.
All right. So what do you do?
What do I do? So
Briefly.
Why are you here?
I'm here because you guys asked me to be here.
Other than
I hear that a lot for some reason.
Oh yeah.
like you
said, hey, you want to come on this? And I said, yeah, sure.
Forced me to come on this show.
So now I'm here.
And here we are.
Previously, before here, I was working outside. I work at a nonprofit and yoga school kind of foundation. There's a deer. It's a fascinating thing.
Sorry. Oh, there's a lot of deer. There's baby deer.
There's a baby deer running outside the station.
I think this is
because
Chad's here. I think
the nature just flocks to you.
He came from a yoga class and then a bunch of deer showed up.
Yeah. So, that's like a recent job of mine. And over the weekend, I work at like an event company. So we do like lighting, and I worked at an Indian wedding over the weekend. That was kind of cool.
Wow. Sounds awesome.
So it's like all types of events. So lighting, stages, draping, sound, audio. I went to school here and I played some music.
Did you graduate?
I did. I just graduated.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Congrats, grad.
You made it.
I did.
Unlike any of us.
Yeah. Where do we know him from, Chandler?
Where do we know him?
I had a class with him.
Okay.
Nobody cares about
I've seen him around.
He keeps bragging about this. No,
I knew him before he was cool.
we went to one of Chad's concerts recently.
We did. We mentioned it on last week's show. But yeah, we went to your show at the Coffee House Without Limits. It was super sick.
Cool.
We really enjoyed it. And so you're a musician too.
I am a musician.
Yeah.
It's all just kind of roles, different aspects of life. But
you wear many hats.
Yeah,
How do you do it?
Hats.
Where do you keep all the hats? Do you have a hat rack?
Why don't you have a hat on right now?
I showered, so
That's a good reason.
I had a hat on earlier today because of the sun.
That makes sense.
It's usually for function that I wear a hat. Long hair, it's like if I don't have a hair tie.
Man.
It is, yeah, and like your face burns if you don't have a sun visor. Who knew?
You even wear a lot of hats as a musician. I heard you were playing like 3 different instruments that night.
Yeah, I started out as a drummer, so I've been playing drums for maybe, over 10 years now, 13 or something like that.
Nice.
And then playing guitar for, maybe 8 or 9. And then
You're on bass, right?
Yeah, pick up a little bass, pick up a little mandolin. I've been playing that a lot more lately.
So cool.
You had the turtle shell thing.
Yeah, so I got a little hand pan, which is like a notated steel drum. It's like inverted, but there's little cuts in the drum, and it makes these really pretty noises. And can mesmerize you a bit.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, that was the coolest part of the concert. When you guys were you guys just looked at each other and you're like, you want to switch? And then you just traded off instruments. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. Well, my whole high school and late middle school, just years, were always just friends over my house, just jamming. We would just come home from school and just play music for hours and just improv and jam. And that was just kind of a lot of my musical background, was just playing with other people and improvising.
It's the best way to learn.
Yeah, which is a lot different than a lot of other people, because sometimes I meet people that are like, hey, let's play some music, and they have a more theoretical background and more classically trained. And it's just 2 different sides of the brain. So I'm trying to merge that with a little bit more knowledge of notes and scales and actually think about what I'm doing rather than just feel it.
Have you started to delve into music theory?
Yeah, I have a general understanding, and
it's tough. I think the way you're doing it is better. Like being able to have fun first, I think is really important, because whenever you get frustrated with learning music theory, which can be pretty convoluted sometimes, you can just be like, "Whoa, wait a minute," and just jam and just have some fun.
That's what
and
happens.
Then you can
a lot
go
of
back
time.
to it.
It's like aimless noodling, but like I gotta find how to do like intentional noodling.
Right.
There's even at the concert you were like, you prefaced some songs like, "This is half finished. I just felt like playing it," and I totally wouldn't have known that was not finished if you didn't say it.
I get tired of like playing shows like the same songs over and over again out in different things. I like to kind of bring something new, or at least play the songs in a different way, just because of my influences from like jammy or improv stuff. It's just fun to do that. So a lot of the times music for me is just like kind of playing a guitar and singing some things and letting my heart go in whatever direction that feels. But, you know, sometimes you can't. Yeah, if I'm playing a song that I've written in the past and it might be a certain emotion, I don't necessarily feel that in the moment. So sometimes it's like, that song doesn't feel good playing in the moment, you know, if that makes sense. So it's like calling upon different energies and feelings to provide that to whatever space or moment I'm in via music.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so sometimes it's harder to play sad songs. Sometimes it's like it's hard to muster up the energy to play a happy song, you know. It's
wow.
That's
go
really
with the flow.
Actually. Well, it's interesting, I think, because you're one of the, at least that we've had on the show, probably, that we've had on that. You play a lot of shows and you're very improvisational and stuff like that. It's just kind of a different approach than a lot of the other people I think we've talked to, who they have a bit more of like a background of music theory or just more structure, you know, at all in the approach to how they learned, you know, music or whatever. So I think that's really interesting to hear that side of it, and that it's possible to kind of get to your level of understanding with it, you know, with that approach, I think is also really cool. It shows just how subjective like all of it really is, you know. Do you have like a favorite instrument, perhaps?
Favorite instrument?
Out of all the ones you play?
Well, I would think, I mean, that's hard. It depends. I definitely think I've come the furthest on the drums just from being able to play that a lot, but I've been really enjoying playing the mandolin lately. It just kind of feels really awesome. So as of lately, I've loved playing the mandolin, but guitar is just so expressive and just has its own feel to it.
Do you feel like you're more connected to the guitar? Because I don't play a lot of different instruments, but I do play guitar and bass, and I definitely feel a much stronger connection to one of them than the other.
Yeah. I feel like drums are really like primal and kind of have this rhythm to it where it's like more earthy. So it's like really like grounding, so to speak, in a way. When playing drums, it's like, all right, it's just explosions of sound and just like kind of making noise in a way, or kind of rhythmy and trancey. Where guitar, I feel, is like a lot more heady and like comes from a different place because it's more melodic, and it like if I'm feeling all dreamy and more in a heady space, it's nice to play.
So you're saying depending on your mood, it actually kind of changes.
Yeah,
that's cool. I don't have that.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so it's like sometimes, like tonight, I have band practice with my band Banshee. We're going to be playing out in Kutztown, just practicing, and I play drums in that.
Right.
So that's more of going to be like rocking out. And last week we actually practiced without speaking. We were like, let's enter the room and not talk at all. So for these next like hour and a half, let's just like
Can we do a show like that?
let's just
People would probably like that more.
Could we prep a show like that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
We can't even prep a show by talking.
Yeah.
No.
But there's this telepathic interplay that starts to happen, which was kind of cool because we started writing these two different musical ideas and going back and forth between them over the course of like an hour or so.
Especially when you're playing music, because when you play with the same people for an extended period of time, you almost know what they're going to do before they do it.
Yeah.
That was the coolest part of your show to me, is that you guys just went back and forth so well without like any communication, just the music.
It's interesting to watch.
Yeah, I've been playing with everybody for a while. Like Steve, who's in my band Banshee, and also who played with me on the other week, with which you guys saw. He's been playing with me for like 6 years or so. And then Charlie, the other guy who was playing the native flute. It's a funny story how I met him, because he was just like living down the road from my house. And one day I was like, I don't know, 10 or 12 or something in between that age range. And I was skateboarding out front, and he just pulls up blasting this metal music out of his Jeep. And he's like, hey, you think an old head like me don't know how to skateboard? And like, I'm not doing well at all skateboarding. Like, I'm just like, I hadn't even like accomplished any sort of satisfaction in what I was doing that day. And he picks up the skateboard, just like does this board slide on this rail that I had set up, and then sticks it, and then just kicks up the board and hands it like back to me. And he's like, yeah, and we chatted for a moment, and then he just like went off. And I was like, what? And then like just slowly we developed a relationship, and he liked music, and we both kind of got into like more spiritual side of living in a way. So then it just kind of worked out that we entered this band.
That sounds like how a character gets introduced in like a movie or like a TV show.
It was bizarre.
Like, what is that?
Well, I gotta say, I totally believe he's amazing at skateboard, though.
Yeah. If that's how he preferred to start that conversation, he must have been pretty confident.
Yeah, he was.
A 10-year-old kid.
It was really good.
So it seems like you use music a lot to express your like emotions. That seems like the main drive behind it for you.
Yeah, in a way, or just to kind of, it's a tool to release in a way and come into the present moment, because, you know, a lot of the times we're living in our heads and just like kind of living in the past or the future. And like when you're playing music, it like grounds you into the moment. And like for me, at least, a lot, and I've learned not to think, and that's what I've enjoy the most about it, because sometimes if I'm thinking too much or I got too much going on, it's like I can't play. It just doesn't feel like coming out because too stressed out. But sometimes it's a great like alleviator from that stress of daily life, just to let go and kind of get lost in some sound for a little bit.
Grounding you in the present is a really good way to describe that feeling, I think.
Yeah, well, how many things, what do you guys do where you're not thinking, where you're focusing on one thing? Because when I'm playing, I'm only focusing on that. And every note that comes, it comes and then it goes and it's gone. But like there's a certain beauty to that, to just like instant gratification of creating. Like drawing a painting's a much different art. Like it's art, music, and like physical art.
Does that change when you're performing? Because I've heard of artists who space out when they play gigs in front of thousands of people, and they just think about movies or like whatever. And because just so they're so focused on not messing up or anything like that, just getting into a zen sort of thing. Does that change for you or no?
I don't think so, because a lot of the times like the improv stuff keeps you on your toes.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's like, especially like with Banshee, where we improv a little bit more. Like me playing guitar, I mean I have developed a little bit of improv, but with drums I'm better at improving in the moment, and like we'll go off and like jump ship, and then there's this like moment where it's like, all right, we're all completely off where we were in the song, and it's like, how are we going to bring this back? And it's like there's a certain just beauty to that, and then like taking it to a crescendo and bringing it back to something else, and there's just like waves. Yeah,
that's so cool. I've noticed the like not thinking part even a little bit, and I've learned like nothing on guitar. I learned like the intro to a song, but it was like once I like got like the tabs down a little bit, it was just easier to not think about it so much and just
grounds you.
Feel it out. It's really cool.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of the thing is in learning theory. It's like you're supposed to learn so much and then just throw it out the window. That's like kind of what jazz is. It's like know all these different like ingredients that go into music.
Learn the rules so you can break them, is how I've heard it described.
Which I haven't completely done. That's why I'm saying I'm like coming in from that feeling point where I'm like learning more, and then sometimes I even notice when I'm trying to learn new concepts or like a scale or different things on guitar or rhythms, I'm like thinking about it, and it like screws me up because I'm just not used to it. I'm like, wow, I get like incapacitated on my instrument. I'm like, how do I even play? Because my mind gets in the way a little bit, but that's got to bridge those two things.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, here's a little metaphorical question.
Uh-oh.
What would you guys do without music?
I'd be very sad.
Have a lot more competition on the radio.
That's true. We'd be even worse at our jobs.
Well, it depends what you define as music, you know?
Yeah, here's a rabbit hole.
No, wait, what do you mean by that? I don't hear it.
I mean, like, so like, what do you hear when you go outside when there's like cars, you know? Isn't that music? Because it isn't sound, you know? Like, what about birds, you know? Or if you're talking about music and you're like, hey, well then you like birds don't have any chirps.
Yeah, where
is that how far you're going with it? Or are you going like the water doesn't flow anymore? Because like I would go into the forest and say that there's an orchestra going on.
I was thinking of it as music being a human invention, but I guess it's kind of closed-minded. I guess it's
it is really interesting. I'll be somewhere and I'll hear like, even at work or something, I'll hear like a machine going with a certain rhythm and timing. And I'll start like tapping to it and just like making a thing in my head about it.
Disco.
And it's like, and so it's like even little things like that can turn into music. I always find there's a lot of artists who kind of, I don't know what the word for it is necessarily, but they kind of like scout sounds in everyday life and kind of use them as the basis for like beats and stuff like that, which I always find that really interesting. You know, like a bird chirping or something, you know, becomes a song.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just crazy. I'm really into that kind of stuff.
It's wild. All right, we're going to break real quick. So we'll be right back. Actually, we're going to come back on one of Chad's songs. And we'll talk about that a
new
little
song.
bit. New song.
Whoa. Chad's like, wait, what?
All right.
Give me 1 second, because I forgot to pause something.
Good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
All
We
right.
weren't live this whole time.
And, all right, we'll be right back.
Wait, we're live radio?
On my way back home, I'm on my way back home. On my way back home, I stopped to see the sun. Son said, don't you know that home is wherever you may roam?
And we're back. Before the edit podcast, apparently we were alerted by Chris Andrews there's some viewers and listeners. What?
Sure.
In the UK.
Yeah, so hi.
So that's cool.
So hey to all
Hey,
the
how's it
listeners in the
going? Small
UK.
world.
Greetings.
I have
Go
friends
to
in
bed.
the UK.
It's late.
Is it?
It's not
It's like
that
10
late.
o'clock, isn't it?
Yeah, it's way past my bedtime.
That is true. I didn't think about that. So that was a Chad Brown original.
Whoa.
Was that all you?
It wasn't all me. I was like starting to record everything, but I'm working out of this studio called Shard Studio in Bethlehem. It's in a garage, and the guy Matt Mulchaney, who recorded my Banshee album, my main band where I play drums in, me and him just developed a relationship, and I just was like, hey, let me start tracking some of my own stuff, and like I'm just used to like playing an acoustic guitar and singing, and just like, all right, that's it, but just kind of happened that I'm like, let's add some drums, add some bass and guitar and see where that goes. So it started out kind of like that on this project that I'm working on now, which that little piece you heard is a piece of. And
What was that called?
it was called Way Back Home. It was actually the first song I wrote because I didn't play guitar all summer long. I'm going to go on a slight tangent.
Wow.
But yeah, I lived in Costa Rica over the summer. So when I got back from Costa Rica, I picked up a guitar, and that was the first song I played and
That's
like wrote.
crazy.
And I went to see this eclipse, you know, the solar eclipse, the big solar eclipse over the summer. So that was kind of like a little bit what it was about, was the solar eclipse, and just kind of seeing that like on my way back home. I stopped to see the sun. It was in South Carolina before I came up here. It's like a quick
That's so
overview
cool.
on that, on just like the inspiration behind that. But yeah, so I've been recording with Matt, and Matt played drums and lead guitar and all this other stuff because he's like 45 and a lot more advanced than me. 'Cause
Imagine where you'll be when you're
yeah,
45.
that's the thing, because he's good, and he's teaching me a little bit on drums and different things to help further that, because he's just an amazing musician. So I played a little bit, and then he was like, yeah, maybe let's do this, and then he like played it. I'm like, you just play it, man. It's gonna sound better. You know, I'll just play my guitar and sing. I'm just happy to make something awesome.
Chandler was saying off air about how all of your individual stuff, like the different projects you're involved in, all sort of occupy their own different kind of space. And I feel like this is true to that too. Like it's also a unique thing. Like you could have a whole album of this kind of music
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Everything, like so you gave, when we were at your show, you gave me 3 of your CDs of different
Oh, cool,
various
yeah.
projects to listen to. And so I was delivering pizza all weekend, and so I was listening to
Just for free. Just
all
handing
of
it out.
them. Yeah, just for free. You just gave them to us. So I listened to all of them on repeat all weekend. Really, like, I'm used to, when I'm doing stuff like that, I'm used to listening to a much different mood of music, you know, that's much higher intensity. So to be doing like working and listening to that was so much more calming and put me in, it was more cinematic at times, even, you know, just the kind of soundscapes you have going on in some of those projects are so interesting. But each one I could always tell that like which CD I was on, because they each have a different kind of mood to them. There's one in particular that sounds like it would be an amazing just like soundtrack to like a film. You know, like that's like all I picture when I listen to it.
All like the native flute and stuff?
Yeah, stuff like that. Just very like, yeah. Oh man. And then there's another one that was so interesting in your vocal delivery of things and the ideas being facilitated on that. And it was so interesting to listen to all of them in a row, you know, as kind of one thing.
Well, thanks for taking the time to actually listen to full things, because sometimes I'll look at Bandcamp and like where I put some of the albums that I've put out, and people only make it like 3 songs in because it gives you the stats, and it's like the first 3 songs have like a bunch of listens, and the last couple there's like only a few, and I'm like, nobody has any patience.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is to listen to all of them together, you know, for like at least one of the projects, you know, I think is really important, because it's kind of a journey that you go on throughout the whole thing that has like a beginning, middle, and end, you know, has a resolution to get to. Yeah. And I think that's really cool. And the one, I don't know the names because my CD changer's in the trunk of my car, so I couldn't just like...
I'm not even sure the names are on them because they're burned discs.
I have no idea. But the one where you kind of start the album talking about love in a certain way, I believe, and then you end the album talking about it in a bit of a different way. I found to be kind of this interesting trip to go on, you know, from start to finish in that album.
Cool. Yeah, I have no clue which one it is.
No idea.
Because I think actually I just like, you know, it was a coffee shop show, and like I've been working on new things.
Gave them
I just burned a couple CDs beforehand. Like one was an actual album, the other one was like just some native flute and different jam things that I did with Charlie, and then the third was just like other random songs. So it might have been just like a mashup of different things I worked on, and I just burned them like, hey, people want to listen to the things. If they like it, here you go. So I guess that worked out.
It was really good.
I realized like the native flute, I had like, I don't know, when we were going to that concert, I had no idea what that would be like, but it was amazing.
Yeah, we get a little funky with it, get a little folky, get a little like deep into this like trancey journey type of thing.
I'm surprised, I'm surprised it's not used more in like other stuff. I'm surprised it's like the first time I've ever heard that used.
I think it'd be really interesting to hear that kind of instrumentation in kind of in different genres, to have that kind of bleed into even something like something hip hop, or even something more electronic, EDM, you know.
We're working on some stuff where it's like a little more just trancey, where there's different rhythms going on with just flutes. So like like 3 or 4 flute players just playing flute and just kind of doing different rhythms.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's weird stuff's going on, you know.
It's out of control.
Yeah. Well, one of the ideas we're having in this, the thing that you guys kind of saw at the coffee shop, because even after that, like I was a little depressed after the show, not just because sometimes it's like takes a lot of energy for me to play, and you put a lot into things, and not knowing how much the fruits of what you're doing. Not that like you're doing it for the fruits, but at least with that kind of group, the new name of it's going to be called Terra Cura, which is like Earth Healing or Earth Care, and it's all like kind of about love and being more conscious of how we live and just taking care of the earth and different ways to integrate that for our own healing and for other people's healing. So it's like musical medicine in a way, is like the way we look at it. So like sometimes playing in an environment like a coffee shop, it's a little bit different than playing somewhere like some sort of festival where it's outside because the energy is kind of be dispersed, or somewhere like a couple weeks back, a couple months ago actually, we played at the place I'm working at, which is an ashram, and it's like a whole place where like spirituality is really open about that, and it's just like the show is so awesome because like everybody was so receptive to the message and just like giving it right back, and I had everybody singing and they were singing back, and it was like call and response, and it was like what the energy was just like flying all over the place, and it was so easy to cultivate that because they were into it, rather than like going into a coffee shop, you have random people from off the street that may or may not be at different levels of consciousness or mindfulness and all that. So it's like they're coming in and they're just like, I'm putting out like this very more heartfelt stuff, and then it's like, oh well, I don't know if they received it or not, or if they're just like people are just looking at me like, oh well, okay.
Well, I was receiving it.
Yeah,
I
and
was
well,
feeling
it's
it.
fruitful. You guys obviously called me here, so that's like part of the thing. But I don't know, it's an interesting thing to describe, and especially when playing music, as we were kind of talking earlier, it's that one point of focus, not really thinking about everything else. So say that's one point of peace that you experience during a day, and the rest of the day might be all sorts of crazy. And then that's why people get depressed that are musicians, because they have this experience of bliss and peace, and then everything else kind of goes crazy again because they don't know how to deal with the world. So,
Is that something you feel often? Like after you're done performing, that you feel like that? You kind of have a low after the big high,
I kind of think so, because like even with bigger shows, it takes a lot putting into it, and you just like kind of practice and all this different stuff that you have to do, and even harnessing equipment, and you're not really getting paid a lot depending on the show, but. Yeah, I would say that like just like a general drainage is a common thing where I feel it, and it's like or relief because like something's over. And I've just noticed taking more time to like go into a studio or play in better environments where people are receptive and also giving me energy rather than me just putting out so much energy and just like leaving it there and then feeling drained. I think it's more just the quality of the space, how much people are helpful in setting things up and just receptive to the music, and then also how much I have to drive, and
how much gas.
Well, and with drums, playing drums, living in the car with drums and heavy equipment, like it's crazy,
The back and
carrying that
forth
around.
energy thing is an aspect of live performance that doesn't get talked about too often, at least in my experience, but it's so true. It's such a back and forth.
Yeah.
It plays such a big role in how the performance goes.
Yeah.
So would you say that for your process, that's really important to be mindful of the space and the people that you're playing for and kind of all that goes into it that makes you have a different reaction to everything?
Yeah, and I think it has something to set on myself and my own personal work, and like just being mindful of where I'm at and being truthful with myself with like, maybe that's something, it wasn't anything to do with anybody else or the space. It just might have something to do with me, where it's like, oh, well, what's the problem in my mind and my heart? Or like, what am I holding on to? Because maybe, because that's the whole thing. If you expect things or have attachments, that's when you get depressed or have experienced any sort of pain or suffering.
I think that I get where you're coming from about the different audiences, and I'm sure it was weird playing in the coffee shop to have those people where you're like, I have no idea if these people know what's going on.
It's the quality of the songs too, because I have different songs where they're more fun-hearted and different like just about nonsensical things and just having fun and jamming. And honestly, like when we were improvising and just kind of out there, I felt like better about it. But then like playing these songs where it's like more deeply meaning to me and about surrendering to like the heart and to love, it's like a little bit harder to just like cultivate that when I don't know how. It's a vulnerable place to be in, where like singing about funky monkeys isn't as like
everybody
as vulnerable.
can relate to that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm all
So
about
it's like
funky
I love
monkeys.
coffee shops and open mics and stuff and doing that type of thing. So
I think it's really interesting, the juxtaposition of going into such an urban environment and bringing music that's so the opposite of that, of origin and everything. It's just so the anti, where you are essentially.
Yeah.
And it was like walking out of the coffee shop after hearing that music, and then on the street down the road from where we were, there was another club open.
Yeah.
That it was just playing generic like dance hip hop music. Yeah. It was just like that, like, okay, this was a moment that is not probably common in this area,
Yeah, and that's why it's important to go to those places still and do that. But that's what I'm saying. That's something in my own work where I need to just like put in the places, the practices that I don't get into that drained state.
I think that what you're doing is good. I think you probably resonated with a lot more people and opened their mind a lot more than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah.
I hope so. I mean, you have a little bit of power in your hands, believe it or not. That's kind of cool.
To bring nature and spirituality and stuff like that into environments that are pretty devoid of that sometimes.
Yeah.
And
bringing presence, 'cause that's the thing, just being present with each other. That's like, the big thing is after just playing, you're like in that space and you're just present. I can't like that's the thing I love about going to see concerts and playing with other people, because you're just present. You're not on your phone. I mean, sometimes videotaping, but like there's guaranteed to be a moment of just organicness just that puts people in.
Yeah.
But,
It did feel like everybody was like there. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like
Yeah, it
it's
did.
really weird. Like that. Those like you went on for like 3 hours or something like that. It was
Really?
Like,
Oh,
it was.
man,
It
that's
was.
crazy.
It was at least 2.5. And
oh
I'm like,
man.
I never want this to end. I keep listening to native flute all night long.
Yeah. Well, we want to do like journeying things. So I got like a gong and I got different like instruments. And during my yoga class, sometimes I'll just like play like instruments and put people into like an extended relaxation and do more sort of meditative music. So I'm thinking about cultivating some sort of workshops where I have people come and it might be like an hour to like 2-3 hour workshop where it's just like having different sounds go on while you just kind of like lay down and rest and go deep into a relaxation into your own like inner landscape. But then there's different sounds going on, like the native flute and different things that make it sound like wind, and maybe get trancey and use electronic stuff too. But just kind of like really tranced out things because that's how you get high without drugs, you know?
Through music and art.
Yeah.
Pat, do you have some questions? You have some interesting conundrums to tackle.
Oh, we did.
I believe prepared.
Good?
They don't.
Oh.
They
That's
don't
not what I meant, but all right.
Really?
I didn't know.
What did you mean?
I don't know. You just said you had stuff to
No.
talk about. That's
Fortune
fine.
cookies?
You can do whatever
Let's
you
do a
want.
fortune
Well, it's
cookie.
already they're out now.
There you go.
Lizzie and I have questions, but
Uh-oh.
I don't know if you've guys noticed, but they don't ask the women in the room if we
Not
have
how
any
it is.
questions.
That's no. All right. Well, we have. I thought that you're a very wise person, Chad, I would say. So I thought it'd be worth that we all get some wisdom imparted in us today
What are we looking at here, Chandler?
with fortune cookies. So
Are
I
these
think
safe to
everyone
eat?
should
How
get a
old
new
are these?
fortune today. I wouldn't eat them.
Why do you have so many of these?
Well, you know. We eat a lot of Chinese food, I would say.
I was actually thinking about getting
Yeah,
Chinese
break them
after.
right into the mic. And then we can all see what kind of new
Please don't do
wisdom.
that. That looks terrible.
What new
on the latest
wisdoms
ones.
we have.
I got a pretty good one. Can you not open that directly in front of the
It's
mic?
really stale. Don't eat them.
Why were you eating it? Are you ready for mine? This one's actually pretty relevant. Every day is a new life to a wise man.
Whoa.
That's crazy.
It's very stale.
You can feel how stale this is.
Don't wait for your ship to come in. Swim out to it. I like that.
Yeah.
That's
Isn't
really
that- wait,
cool.
That's a real one. That's good.
Isn't
That's
that how you
essentially
die
like-
at sea?
No, well, all right. But like,
No, see, that's a lot better than if you tempt a squirrel with a nut, be prepared to be bitten.
that's weird. That seems very specific situations where that is true.
What was it? One more time?
All right.
If you tempt a squirrel with a nut, be prepared to be bitten.
What do you think that means?
You tell me. That's why you're here.
I think
That's
it
why I'm
means
here.
like I don't know, don't tease people.
guess
Or
so.
like
Okay.
don't tease people with things that you can't
I think
fulfill or
it's
something.
along the same lines.
No,
of
you read
don't
it.
play with fire, you're gonna get burned.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine says the usefulness of a cup is in its emptiness.
That's interesting. Because a cup isn't useful just because it has liquid in it. A cup is useful because you could do it. Have the liquids in it.
Run that by me
sold.
again.
I'm sold. That's good.
A cool thing about the emptiness thing is I went and saw like a Swami speak once, and he just talked about emptying yourself, and he was like, just make yourself empty, and he's like this big Indian guy, just like empty yourself, just empty. And he talked about like phone storage. He's like, think about how your phone gets slow. It's like because it's so full, you just gotta empty it. Just empty it.
It's kind of weird.
That's interesting.
But it's the same thing,
It
'cause
is, yeah.
it works better when you're empty.
All right, we're gonna.
You got
We got a quick.
I have a good one right here. It says, hard work without talent is a shame, but talent without hard work is a tragedy.
Whoa.
On that, think about that one over the break. We'll be right back. And we're back. What?
You know,
We're gonna. Now we're gonna.
I think you said that in the wrong order.
Da-da-da-da.
All right, we're gonna roll back a little bit. You talked about spending your summer in Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. What were you doing down there?
So in Costa Rica, I went and I did a yoga teacher training, and I spent like 2.5 months in the jungle, which was really quite a profound and awesome experience.
What did you say in the jungle? Were you like sleeping in
Mayan
trees or
temple?
something?
Well, so they were like modern tree houses. So it was like getting to this place, I had to fly into like one of the main cities, San Jose, and then take another one of those like really tiny planes that are like less than 30 people over the big like waterway into this just like little peninsula in Costa Rica on the what would it be? West Side.
I don't think that's what it was.
Yeah. Well, like southwest tip.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm on this little peninsula, and then I took like a bus and a like little train, like car thing.
At what point were you like, this might be a bad idea?
Well, that's the mind though. Like the whole time, like I wanted to do that because it like was like a cultivation of like I had a lot of stuff going on the year before, a lot of like internal things going on and changes in my life, and like the only thing that really helped with that was yoga. So, I was like, wow, like there's something there, and part of it wasn't like really to be a teacher, but to like just deepen my own practice and understanding. And I could have done that like here or somewhere because there's teacher trainings everywhere, but I kind of wanted to just get away and go somewhere else because I like to travel. And it's like immerse myself in nature and be a part of that lifestyle. So that was like all cultivating. So I saw this one place and I was like, wow, I fell in love with like the pictures and the vibe. It's called the Sanctuary at Two Rivers. Wow. And yeah. So it was like in between two rivers. So after I like flew over into the peninsula, I had to go like 2 hours on dirt roads, and there like people are literally just driving 4-wheelers because they didn't have as many cars over there. And they're all dirt roads that are bumpy, you get real car sick. And then hiking up, you get to this like farm area. So there's just a bunch of farms and like really little town, not many houses in between, just the beach and the coast that is just beautiful, nobody on the beach. And then you have to hike a whole mile up a river to get to this place. So it was literally the only way to get up was through up a river over two and a bunch of streams. So every time I wanted to go and leave the place, like while I was there to go to the town, I had to like cross two rivers. And it was nestled in between two rivers. So it was like these jungle tree houses and just
that sounds
everything
amazing.
was outside. So there was like no difference between the inside and outside. Everything was like screen walls, but it was modern. They had like good food and bathrooms and showers and stuff.
That's good.
And fans
hope so.
and electricity and Wi-Fi, but it was all solar powered, so
that's
it was sustainable. Yeah, it was really cool.
Dude, go green.
So
honestly,
every day, like waking up, like meditating and doing like a 2-hour yoga practice, and then talking about it, and then eating really dank, delicious vegan and vegetarian gluten-free food, and then
You're vegetarian? Are you vegan?
I was vegan for like a year, but then I was eating vegetarian because they had like farm fresh eggs like right there, and it was way better than tofu. I can tell you that. so yeah, I eat vegetarian typically. So
did you make a switch at some point or like?
It was like kind of like naturally happened. I feel like everything for me just kind of naturally. It's like this progression, and just like it's like an allowance of just like whatever kind of arises, and just like stopping to eat meat was just like something that happened along the way.
So there was no real big change.
No, I was just like, I'm just trying that. I just like see how I feel, and then it was like went back and forth and dabbled, and it's just an observance of my own body. It's like an experiment, life, and that's kind of what yoga teaches. It's like a spiritual life science. So I'm going there and I'm learning that, and I'm there for 2 months. I did a month of my training, and they asked me to stay, and then I worked as an intern and did worked in the kitchen and did dishes for 20 people 3 times a day, which was a lot of work. Doing dishes now isn't bad at all. And I lived there, and then I came back, and then I wrote that I went to see the eclipse, and my buddy picked me up, and like there's a whole crazy story on getting out of there, but I don't know how much time we have to tell that thing, or what direction you want to go, or what you want to talk about. I don't know.
Maybe we'll just make a movie about it.
Yeah, you should. Tell that later.
Can we steal your idea?
Was it dangerous?
What? What's the idea?
Can we steal your idea?
I don't even know what
It's
the
not
idea
an
was.
idea. It's just
It
what happened to him.
Yeah, I know. I get it.
So I lived
Can we steal your experience?
in the jungle, and it was just so peaceful. Like going from there and that mindset, like there was like little cause and effect influence that I'm having on the world, because all I had to do was meditate, do yoga, read a book, eat, talk to people, walk around in the jungle, like hang out by the river. Like that's all there was to do, I brought some flutes and I played a little bit of flute, but like literally there's not much that I can influence or harm to change things. We're here, we're getting in cars, there's a lot, and interacting with a lot more people than just like a small group. So you just really notice how much effect you have on the world, or how harsh like and intense everything else here is. There like the Wi-Fi wasn't that good, so I wasn't on my phone a lot, and here you're just bombarded with things. Being in a car, like on a highway, there's a lot of cars, a lot of things going on, a lot of potential for cause and effect.
Is like the environment and pollution and things like that something you feel strongly about?
Yeah, I feel like ecology and just in general with the ecosystem, like it's in a very different place than we've ever been. Like we're in such an interesting place in time, like we're so connected via the internet and electronics, but we're so like disconnected from the earth, from the cycles of nature, from like tuning in, because our food comes from 1,000 miles away half the time, halfway across the world. And there's so many things like that have disconnected us and made us not appreciative towards like what we have. So if you look at that and you look at just like oil and all these things and the oil spills and just pollution in general, it's killing species and the biodiversity of the planet. So when you look at that, we don't even know how much these different species that are going extinct affect us and what they've had as a role in the environment. Because I kind of take on the perspective that everything happens for a reason. So even that, it's like, well, there's some sort of lesson there, but like everything plays its part. If you look at nature, it just works that way. Like spiders take care of other bugs and keep like just plants, from dying, and plants have different
like
oils and responses to like, and healing properties, so that I don't know, I kind of brain farted there, but yeah, you have just all these different things, and when everything's so interconnected, like in like the spiritual world, you hear like, yeah, we're all one, but when you look at it that, from this perspective, there's no way that we as people could do stuff without nature and without other people. Like, there's roads to get here. People built the roads, so we wouldn't be able to do this podcast without the people that built the roads, without, the cars, the people who built our cars, and the people that mine the oil and all this different stuff. And it's the same way in nature, So it's the same. We don't know what these species have or do for us, but they're just like, we're just like, screw it.
Humans very recently have reached any form of understanding about the actual impact individual species have on the rest of the ecosystem and the species around them. Like we very recently understood how apex predators work and like all these different things of like they did. I don't know what the exact year time frame of it was, but I mean they were just doing experiments where they deliberately were removing certain species of like algae or like a certain kind of crab or a starfish from a certain island ecosystem or something, and just seeing what happens over time. And like it always had just like something that they always thought had no relevance at all would just massively affect everything. Yeah. And we only very recently came to understand that in the slightest. So for us to be like, oh yeah, we're killing all these species because of pollution and polluting the waters and oil spills, and for that to just kind of be a shoulder shrug is like, you have no idea probably what that's affected, on a massive scale.
Yeah. So then what do we do with that? That's the big question. And like we're aware of that to a degree, but like, I don't know how educated we are on it. Like even me, I'm not that educated on it. I'm aware of it to a certain level. And like, yeah, I'm passionate about tuning into that. But I think the only way I've learned to make a change, it's like not through the voting and not through politics or not through all this, it's through changing yourself and then working on that. So like maybe that's going vegetarian. Not that that's the reason I'm vegetarian, but like that's for some people. Or it's like riding a bike or driving less, or, just using a reusable water bottle instead of plastic.
Because I mean, if everybody changed themselves, that would reflect upon the world, because everybody would have that new like perspective.
But that's something that's been, even for the people who are very environmentally savvy, like Leonardo DiCaprio, for example, is a good. Everyone knows who that is. He's like he is the voice of the environmental climate change, all that for the United Nations or whatever that they elected. Just as a name, like, oh well, people listen to Leonardo DiCaprio. And, even he reached this dilemma when making his documentary, and he mentions it in the documentary Before the Flood that he did for the National Geographic a few years back, which was amazing, and you should go watch if you haven't yet, and it'll change your whole deal on climate change and the environment. But he mentions that. He's like, I'm going around the world talking about these things, talking to all these different experts and talking about climate change, but in order to do that, I am taking a jet and flying to all these different places and taking cars to drive. Like my carbon footprint is just as much of a problem, yet I'm doing this from a position where it's, like he's supposed to be helping, but it's like he's essentially a hypocrite. And so it's like, how do you quantify that? And there's like that big dilemma of you want to change for the better, but it's such a compromise to your career. Or it's like, so what do you pick? Like, not have a job for the rest of your life? Like lose your house? What do you do? So it's really, I think it's really challenging for a lot of people. I don't think
everyone. I don't think like you have to change your life drastically. Because if everybody changes a little bit, then it would have the same effect as like a lesser amount of people changing a lot.
I was just listening to Natalie Portman talk. She just did a Hot Ones. Yeah, dude, it was lit. I love Natalie Portman, but I think she's a vegan, and she said like not everyone has to stop eating meat. It's like even if you just eat chicken instead of meat, beef, or even if you just eat, I think
it was like just make one meal like vegan a week.
One meal vegan a week, and that would make a difference. If you can't commit to eating tofu every single day, which to ask that of people is a little,
and even there's so many arguments there that say, hey, like plant-based diets are just as bad for the environment, and you can get into these different things and arguments, and everybody has different preferences and differences and views and perspectives, and like I don't know, we're all always going to have that. So then we're always going to have this like sense of duality in the world. Yeah,
it's really crazy.
But the beauty's inherently there still. There's
for now.
Yeah, but it's the Earth's going to be there, and you hear that argument that it's not saving the planet, it's saving humanity because the Earth is okay.
Yeah,
the ocean. Well, some parts of the Earth are not doing well because of us, but it's not. It's not like it's never going to bounce back.
There's all that, but like.
It'll shake us off of it and then recover.
I mean, it definitely makes me sad seeing all that, and I get emotional about that. But it's like, I don't know what the.
I mean, the Earth's essentially a huge rock, so it's gonna be here when humanity isn't. So it's like, how do we shape our environment?
So it's really us that are suffering, and the animals and other species, and we're just kind of poisoning everything. But it's all.
Well, that's my thing. It's like when I have kids, I want to be able to have them see a living polar bear if they wanted to, or like be able to go to these places where these indigenous species are supposed to be and have them actually all be alive, that. And to not have to talk in retrospect, like, this is a really cool thing that used to be alive, but we suck and we killed it.
Like rhinos.
Yeah.
Rhinos, yeah.
Oh, man, that's a theme. It's been a theme, the white rhino.
All right, we're going to cut to a break real quick. We're going to be talking about this when we come back, though. I got some more stuff.
White rhinos.
So, white rhino. And we're back. Where were we? Oh, yeah. The world is
ending.
Gonna die, yeah.
The world's over, and we gotta evacuate right now.
We'll see you guys later. I was just curious, Chad. What is your view on the world, like in this moment? Like, what's like?
What?
That's a big question.
What kind of question?
Well, the world's crazy. It's all sorts of wild. But I kind of have taken on the perspective that there's nothing wrong with the world except our own perspectives of it in a way. So, like, I don't know. It's all different. It's all experience to me in a way, where it's experience, pleasure, pain, happiness, sadness. It's all kind of that. So I kind of look at all those tragedies that, we all know the woes of the world and how there's like oil spills, and I was just talking prior about, ecosystem, like death of biodiversity and all this.
All that fun stuff.
Beauty. Yeah. It's beautiful stuff, but I think there's like beauty in everything, and some people like death and beauty in that. It's all sort of just an experience, and I think it's the perspective we take, and an acceptance and an allowance to a degree, but not just being a pushover, but for my own peace, just finding that where I'm looking at it in a way where it's like, okay, well, all I can do, like I mentioned earlier, is change myself and then find community and share that community and try to make the experience that I'm having and the people around me are having a positive one that I feel to that. And, there's going to be negativity. And the way I look at that is like, hey, well, I can either choose to be compassionate or I can choose to be harmful with my words and actions. So you look at that and life takes on a different quality. And then if I'm not harmful, like less harm typically comes to me in a way. So if I'm more positive, more positivity comes to me. So like, I don't know if that answers the question, but like, you know, the world's all over the place, and there's a lot going on, and I can barely comprehend a lot of it. And I can only, you know, I've kind of thought about getting more into activism and that type of thing, but it's just, I don't know. I don't want to really put my energy into that. I want to put my energy into actually what I can tangibly, you know, change here by, you know, maybe inspiring the local community and working on it that way from just where I've been put rather than, you know.
I think that answers the question
the
very
only
well.
way to answer that.
Yeah, really. It's like none of us know what's going on. It's very scary, and we're trying. Like we're just trying to do our thing as best as we can.
So then you live by example, you know?
Yeah.
I have a little follow-up question.
Yeah.
There's like one thing you wish like the average person did more, like something they would try, or like a certain way to think sometimes. Like the equivalent of the like eat one vegan meal a week or something like that. Like if there's one like people that exercise a certain thought exercise, like what would you want that to be?
I guess that's a complex question too, because there's like, you know, how do you can't really put one thing for everybody in a way, in that everybody's different and is at different places and different points in their life and needs different things to like maybe come into balance. But I would probably just say to breathe more and just like be a little bit more present.
That's
You
a
know,
good one.
Slow
That's a good
down.
one, yeah.
You know, maybe people are too slow and need a kick in the butt.
Yeah.
But
So more like achieving that middle ground then. You gotta find the happy middle.
yeah, find a just like balance and, you know, think about your actions.
I think that can come in a lot of different forms. That's applicable to different people. You know, it's like, is that meditation for you? Is that just exercising your mind in a way that calms you down, or like taking 3 seconds to breathe if something bad happens, or like music, or, you know, something like whatever it is. Just finding that thing that'll ground you, you know?
Yeah. And your breath is kind of the guide in any of those situations. If you're anxious, your breath speeds up or slows down, you know, or you're holding it or something. So, like, if you're just aware of your breathing, you can become aware of your state of just where your body's at and your mind and all that.
What about you guys? You have any little?
I have a question.
You have a
Lizzie
question?
has a question.
I thought you were gonna say, do you have any
No, go
questions?
for
Did
it.
her hands raised?
No, go for it.
I have a question. How did you find that place in Costa Rica? Like, how did you get there?
Oh, so in Costa Rica, I found I like Costa Rica.
Sitting here, like,
Thinking about that. Well, the internet, you know, it's a wonderful thing. I was actually working at Blue Mountain, and I was sitting in a shack, and I was watching the lifts go by. Yeah. So I was watching the lifts go by, and then I was like, you know, in this place, like, where I was just, like I said, in a different emotional place, and I'm like, you know, I had the thought, I'm like, yeah, I should probably, like, go deeper into yoga. And I just was, like, in this, you know, place, you know, where you're all by yourself, and your mind goes down, like, different trails, and somehow led me to that thought. And then I, like, looked up yoga teacher trainings, and I found that place. It was like one of the first places that popped up, actually, and I was just like, oh, wow, cool, and I instantly connected with it. And it played like a Trevor Hall song, which I really like this artist, Trevor Hall, in their video, and I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, he did. I was like, well, you know, the cinematography, it's like they're selling it with that. That's like what promo videos are. So they sold it pretty well, and I looked at all these other things and did a research for like 3 months, and I don't know, I just stuck with that one.
Did that cost a lot to go out there?
It was probably... to get there and back, the round trip flight was like $900, and then the training was like all inclusive for the month. And then I stayed longer, so it was less expensive because I kind of knocked off some stuff and I got paid. But yeah, it was like, I don't know, in between $2,000 and $3,000.
Wow.
So
That's pretty cheap for
I think over the
life-changing experience.
I think over the whole summer I probably spent like $45. I don't know. It was just kind of like, hey. I had money saved up, and I was like, you know, this is what I'm gonna do with it.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Cameras.
So, could you tell us a little bit about what you do on Monday and Tuesday nights?
Monday and Tuesday nights.
Yeah, isn't it Monday and Tuesday nights?
Nice.
Just Tuesday
I
nights.
thought there was something Monday
told her
nights,
this
like an
last week,
ashram.
and
or something.
she just didn't.
Oh, at the ashram?
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, I work at the, like I've mentioned, this nonprofit yoga ashram in school, and like right now I'm kind of just working on the staff and volunteering. So on Wednesday nights we do kirtan, which is an awesome thing where it's like call and response, like spiritual, heady, spoonful of sugar music. I don't know that's the way to describe it. But then, so on Tuesdays in Emmaus, I play, do a yoga class and then have like this open jam and have dinner. And it's just like a night for community in a way. So it's all about just bringing together anybody that wants to come, all by donations. And it's it's on Jasper Mountain. It's this old elementary school in Veracruz. So yeah, it's just like a night for community. Have music, have like a community art thing, and have people that hula hoop and do flow arts. So if you're into hula hooping and just dancing, so kind of just building that a bit and just having like a night to gather, because I don't have a lot of time, but it's nice to see friends and meet new friends and socialize. So it's creating a space that's like safe and positive for people to come that don't necessarily want to go to a bar or somewhere else.
That's really cool.
I think we'll definitely check that out.
We're
soon.
definitely gonna be there.
It's tomorrow night.
And if you guys want to also come with, anyone who's listening, if you're in the UK, fly over and meet up.
If anyone from the UK actually comes for this, you're welcome to stay at my house. You're welcome to stay with me.
You heard it here
Come
first.
on, yeah. We'll see you on Tuesday.
Cool.
Will we?
Yeah.
All right.
That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
So yeah, every Tuesday night, I think I'm going to do that all summer and just like keep it, steady. Which last week I had like 12 people come to the yoga class, which before that I only had like 4.
That's
like,
cool.
Or 6 was maybe the top. So it was kind of interesting having a lot of people, which was really quite a cool thing. And like the sunsets over the valley, it's really pretty. Cultivates into a nice evening if everything's just right. So yeah, and then if you're interested at the ashram, there's like first Saturdays and festivals where they just like have an open house and they just teach classes on yoga and different things and kind of wisdom and spiritual talks and music and good vegan gluten-free food. And there's pretty much programming Friday through Sunday. That's like the main program, and during the week there's different classes and stuff. Like tonight there's an adaptive yoga class and a Reiki class, and sometimes I'll take part in the Reiki. It's kind of cool.
What's Reiki, man?
Reiki is like a universal healing modality. I guess it's just like
sounds awesome.
sending universal love into people for healing. So like everybody kind of goes around a table, and this thing, it's like a Reiki share. So you have just one person on the table, and then everybody just like sends love and healing to that person.
Wow. All right, we should say our goodbyes now.
Are you guys playing any new shows coming up? Any of your 25 bands or in different acts that you're in? Anything coming up?
Kind of been taking it slow because I've been in the studio. So tomorrow's Wednesday, right? No,
Tomorrow's
Tuesday. Yeah, Wednesday I'll go back in the studio. I'm trying to finish up that project that I'm working on, and not really much coming up actually. I think there might be like a show coming up later in the month. I think I'm going to go to this festival out in Vermont with a lot of bands that I like. And my buddy Penn Johnson, I'm probably going to play with him at like a farmer's market or something. So.
That sounds so cool.
Yeah. He's a really cool guy. You should check him out, Penn Johnson.
Penn Johnson. But now, when can we expect this new project you're working on?
So like, it's kind of like 2 projects because that's like the songs I had on that are my own, but like I'm starting a new band that you guys saw where it's going to be like a cultivation of different instruments and modalities to kind of make it maybe like trancey and do those like just sound journeys that I was talking about, and then also having more just like folk jam everything that I do. But then so I think it's maybe soon. I want to release it like one song at a time and like do it with stories behind the songs and kind of maybe put poetry with it, and
That's cool.
That's like my idea of it as of right now, but who knows where it's gonna go or end up. So maybe it's just slowly over the summer.
That's awesome. I can't wait.
All right.
Cool.
Where can we find you, Chandler? On social media or whatever?
Oh, I'm Sly Elliott on everything. So check me out. I Instagram. I'm starting to post again, and I got
Zach, are you
Twitch
okay?
streams, and Zach's not okay. He's not
All
okay.
right. Check out our Twitch, Lab212, twitch.tv/Lab212. Weeknights, we stream games. It's fun. I'll be there for some of it.
Playing through Dark Souls still? You're on Dark Souls 2?
Yeah,
You're like halfway through?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I haven't
now.
played it before.
That's weird.
Zach.
I don't know.
Red Flush. The intro is Red. If you remember the intro,
Was it?
all the way back there, it was Red Flushed.
He has a new
Check him
album
out on
now.
SoundCloud.
Called Midori?
Something
Midori?
like that. Something
Midori,
like that.
yeah, it
I
sounds
think
right.
that's the name of the album.
say that.
So yeah, it's Reggie Lab 212
No, just the
Instagram. Also, just Lab 212 in general. Check us out.
And maybe you guys we'll work a little bit in the future on some video stuff.
We would love
Nice
to
idea.
do that. Collab, Chad Brown, X, Lab 212.
All right,
I can't wait.
We're gonna play it out with the rest of Chad's song.
Oh,
So and tune in next week for.
Wait, Chad, where can
what?
they find your music if they want to listen to it?
Oh, the music, Banshee Band. So that's the one thing. It's on Spotify. So if you go Banshee, you'll find it. It's like
That's spelled
BANCHI.
Okay, not
so
like
if you look
the-
up
not like
Banshee,
the ghost.
Banshee.band would be the website for that. And then as of right now, just I don't know.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Read more.
Gonna rebranding.
Nice.
All right.
Catch you guys later. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. No matter where you are in the world,
Just remember to breathe.
remember to breathe. Remember to live a good life. Just do it.
Be
All right.
kind.
Be kind.
All right. Goodbye.
Well, you can't live in the past anymore. Well, lovers come and they go, but that river from